Thank you, Rick. Thanks for inviting me to this event. I also want to give a big shout out to Alan Peisner for his fantastic presentation and his advertisement program that appeared at Hash Bash. I'm Michael Comorn and Comorn Law PLC. And one of the things I know that I'm supposed to talk about, although I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to stick to the program, is the Hemp Industries Association. Comorn Law, with other Michigan people interested in the industry, have created the Michigan Hemp Industries Association. I'm not here to advocate for joining any local chapter that's going to put money in my pocket. I'm suggesting that individuals go to and examine the Hemp Industries Association and join that organization. There are a number of benefits that go along with it, but in short, the purpose and nature of it is very specific. And let me just read from you their charter. The goal is to create a industry here in Michigan through and using the resources of the national chapter, and to bring people together in a trade organization to ensure quality, ensure safe and best practices, and to ensure that the implementation of the current existing hemp laws are done in Michigan. Just for reference purposes, the national, it's not called national, I refer to as the National Hemp Industry Association, was the organization that has been driving any legislation at the federal level. As we all know and are very happy about and excited about, the 2018 federal farm bill, which legalized industrial hemp and displaced the cannabis sativa L plant out of the Controlled Substances Act, was driven by this organization, the Hemp Industries Association. And the most significant, I think, case, just to draw your attention to it, and just so you see how this has played out over the years, is there's always been, hemp in the United States before in recent years. You can think of the various products that are on shelves that you walk into the stores and see. And there's been challenges to this. The importation of hemp in the United States, and processing it in the United States, and processing it and importing it. In a case of 2002, which challenged all of this activity and how and why this production from Canada and other countries and processing was lawful in the United States. And just for brevity's purposes, the ultimate issue that was brought before the federal courts was over and about the definition of the cannabis sativa L plant or marijuana at the time. And I want to talk a little bit later about the various definitions that currently exist, but at this point in time, what's kind of fascinating, and the point being made by the party, which is the Hemp Industries Association against the DEA, that's the name of the case, was that using the DEA's own definition within the Controlled Substances Act, the materials that were being imported and manufactured and processed into these products which are being distributed and sold within the United States were taken from the DEA's definition of marijuana, which was all parts of the cannabis sativa L plant, including a number of things, but did not include the mature stalks and the seeds. So it was the mature stalks and the seeds that were excluded from the definition of marijuana. And I think this is an important point to make now because of the impact it had on the opinion, and also the current status of things in Michigan, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But I bring that to everyone's attention because it was the Hemp Industries Association that was the party against the DEA, and the attorneys for the Hemp Industries Association leading the charge, Hoban Law at the time, and they're an important player in all this. Comorn Law has a partnership with them, and I just mention that now because the globalization of hemp beyond Michigan is a reality as well, and I think if anyone that's getting in the industry needs to consider those markets and how those laws are evolving and developing surrounding the United States. And the involvement of the hemp industries in the marketplaces especially assisted in bringing the current existing opportunities in hemp in the United States to bear. And I'm hoping that with this community here and others and their friends and others involved in the industry, we can likewise have a flourishing Michigan chapter and make sure that the implementation of the hemp laws here in Michigan are done in a way that benefit the community, benefit business owners, benefit farmers, and really end the insanity surrounding the CBD plant. And just so I can finish my point here on the hemp industry's purpose is to educate the public about the exceptional attributes of the hemp products, facilitate the exchange of information and technology between hemp agriculturists, processors, manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, maintain and defend the integrity of hemp products, advocate and support socially responsible and environmentally sound business practices. So that's the theme of what we're trying to drive within this organization, and local representation in that regard is critical. And for those reasons, I would encourage everybody to consider examining go to the website and joining. Amongst the benefits are a vast majority of information. It is a lot of historical documents and a lot of contributions from other states that have more advanced programs. And I think there's a lot of discounts to all of the hemp conferences that have been taking place throughout the world. I mean, I know just recently that the hemp industries was represented down in Panama. Recently there was an event down there. And it is a global issue and a global economy that's growing, and those are some reasons to consider looking at that organization. What I did want to do also in my time to discuss for a minute the current state of affairs regarding hemp in Michigan. I know that sort of most, if not all the people here want to know the timeline of when the industry is going to begin. They want to know what, if anything, they can do to start, are there any opportunities that currently exist. And I will answer that by saying, let me tell you about all the various laws that are in play right now. The only existing path really to be able to grow hemp and begin to process it, and I can't even tell you what those limitations would be at this point, would be through the industrial hemp pilot project from 2014, so there's a federal law and a Michigan law. Currently, though, through the rules and enactment of that, the only way that one could embark and get a license in that regard would be to have university involvement. In other words, a university at the highest level has to sign off and letterhead and be part of the application. The university has to take on the responsibility, not ownership, but like legal responsibility for the property, given its location and all things associated with it. So there's a path in that regard, but unfortunately, this has been going on since 2014, and there's not yet, have we seen a university that is fully signed on and made themselves available. That's not to say different departments throughout the last 4 years have various universities have come forward and shown interest, but it seems like it's the final sign-off at the top tier of universities that's been the holdup. And that's kind of unfortunate, but hopefully with the passing of the Hemp Farming Act and it being declared legal federally, and banking issues and whatnot, and what is commonly associated with universities, the fear of this being a controlled substance and somehow it interfering with federal funds because it's a controlled substance, it really should not be a concern. And all the legislation in Michigan that would allow universities to sign up and participate in the program specifically articulates that funding and federal funding would be allowed under the pilot project. So if you know of someone at a university that can help assist in this regard, it is a good time to encourage them. The other thing I was going to suggest is if we all meet outside, maybe we can formulate a university that it'll be credited, and we can all apply together to try to get a license for halfway. But it has obviously been a problem that it should be. I mean, the reaction just, not that it matters, but it seems like many universities, they don't want to be the first one on the beach at Normandy, as if there should be a concern. But I don't think this is going to be, it's not intended to be like a rogue act where, there's going to be just a growing of hemp in a field. It's unfortunately or fortunately designed in a way that is intended to have much oversight and full-on inspections and involvement with the agency that would be supervising. So, with that said, here's some weird stuff that I think people should be aware of. We've got a lot of different laws in Michigan right now that address the cannabis sativa health plan. Before the MMA and before the MMFLA, the Residence Facility Act, before MRTMA, Prop 1, for the executive order of the governor recently. Those are all four recent legislative acts. And in addition to that, you have the enrolled House Bill 6330, 6331, and also the 6380. All of these impact the industry, both primarily about cannabis sativa L, as it is defined as hemp. So, I said before I want to talk about the definitions of marijuana, and this is to me what the real bend is here. And just to kind of chart it through what's happened and where the ambiguities may lie. You have, of course, the definition of marijuana, as I mentioned before, all parts of the cannabis sativa L plant, not to include the mature stalks and seeds. And it's the mature stalks and seeds that were able to be imported or manufactured and oddly not even included within the definition. And people have been processing those materials in Michigan and throughout the country. You would think that that would be able to remain, and people continue to do that. Then you have the MMA, which didn't do what it did ultimately is it re-embraced the public health code definition. But it's ultimately now defined different aspects of the cannabis sativa plant. You got plant definition, you got usable marijuana definition, you got marijuana use product definition, not necessarily that it deals directly with the hemp industry. And then you have the Marijuana License Facility Act of 2016, and the impact that bill has is significant because it deals with the concepts of applicants. And I'll return to that in a second. But, and then of course you have the passage of Prop 1 in 2018 and signed into law November of 2018. And, I'm sorry, December of 2018 it was ratified by the legislature. And in doing so, it also has a piece in there of industrial hemp. And it had placed the authority and oversight with LARA, and also created a definition of industrial hemp different than that of the one existing in the public health code. It did not, and let me stop there for a second. So the Prop 1, MRTMA, is now being regulated, or intended to be regulated, as is the legalization of marijuana for recreational use for adults over 21 with LARA. And what we know also is that at the same time, around the same time, in the lame duck session, House Bill 6330 was enacted, and this is the bill which authorizes the growing and cultivating of industrial hemp in Michigan. And what it sets forth is that it's a new definition, which I'm going to read here just so to draw the distinctions. Industrial hemp means the plant, the entire plant, cannabis sativa L. So right away, the definitions, words are important in the law. Industrial hemp means the plant, cannabis sativa L. Before, marijuana was defined as all parts of the cannabis sativa L plant. So what I'm saying is the definition of industrial hemp which means the plant cannabis sativa L in any parts of the plant has displaced the definition of marijuana. I mean, you can't say it any other way. And it goes on to describe all the aspects, the derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and isomers, whether grown or not, with a delta tetrahydrocannabinol concentration of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. So what does this mean? This means that the cannabis sativa L plant is, by default, and has been displaced with the Public Health Code, hemp. If it is more than 0.3%, then you're dealing with marijuana. Or what would fall out of this category and be dealt with in the law as marijuana is by those definitions. So this is the rather significant event that took place. And this definition that Michigan ratified in House Bill 6330 is the exact same language that the federal government used in its enactment of the Federal Farm Bill of 2018 as well. What was also significant about Michigan's law is that it goes into detail about the production and distribution of all parts of the plant, including CBD. And there's no question in my mind that this bill was intended to and contemplates the extraction from the cannabis sativa L plant or hemp for the making of CBD products and the like. However, what happened subsequent to that, of course, is a couple of things. One is that the House Bill 6331 was passed, which also restates, and it really is a bill that is enacted into law, just restates these common definitions, which are industrial hemp, marijuana, and doesn't change what they know, what we know them to be, but what it does is it just restates them in what is clearly a conflict in interpretation. And then, of course, we have House Bill number 6380, which was intended to amend the Medical Marijuana Licensing Facilities Act. And amongst the things that it did is it redefined things such as applicant, board, department, grower, industrial hemp, and licensees, and marijuana facilities. And what you see here is the beginning of what I would describe as some real conflicting, cross-pollinating of laws. And I think that, I think to make my point, what we have to look to next is the executive order of the governor, which recently was, March 1st is when it went into effect, but it's Executive Order 2019-7, where the governor, by executive order, removed the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board and created a marijuana regulatory agency. Now, is everyone following me so far? Because everyone kind of following me. I wanted to lay out these various laws that are existing right now, and then kind of explain the confusion, and I think what is ultimately going to be the need for some clarity before those interested in the industry are able to have a clear path. Now, I will have this explained. I'm a lawyer, so I look at things maybe differently. I don't know that this is being picked up across the board, or even that the agencies that are in charge of doing this are picking up on it. But this executive order is very specific. As we know, it removes the licensing board, which was a legislatively created authority to approve and deny licensed applicants who wanted to sell, grow, and process marijuana. And in doing so, by executive order, that authority was vitiated, removed, and all that authority was moved to the MDART, who was now in charge of the industrial hemp program. However, there's certain retention language, or what I would call as saving language, in the Act, which includes things like applicant, processor, marijuana forest, and licenses and regulations, and most importantly, rules. So what my takeaway from the executive order is that it conflicts with many existing laws that came before it. It redefined applicants after the previous amendments and expanded the definition of applicants. It also places the authority of the rulemaking with LARA, when I believe that the Industrial Hemp Act 6330 intended to make the rules and allow the rules to be made by MDART. And furthermore, the 6380 somehow gets its fingers into the MRCMA, Prop 1, and the MMFLA, intertwining industrial hemp with licensing through the MMFLA. If you read the 6830 and 6330, it identifies processors, like a licensed processor through the MMFLA, who is authorized to, in limited, the only people that could today process hemp, buy hemp, but of course they can't buy it from anybody because there's no licenses to grow hemp per se. But you could see something where someone's growing cannabis sativa plants that would fall within the definition of hemp and sell it to a processor, and that would be something that seems to be aligned within the current existing legislation. But what's interesting, if you look back, is that when I began with telling you about the Hemp Industries Association and their lawsuit against the DEA, none of these things were even in the fray. I mean, people could take the stalk and the seeds of the plant and they could do things with it and make hemp products and sell them, and it was not an issue. So now with all this new legislation, you can see, I think, a trend or a path of the government taking hold of and wanting to regulate and require a license for all things related to the cannabis sativa plant. It's kind of unfortunate, I think, in that regard, we're going to have some clarity from the government, but in doing so, they've got to encapsulate a lot more than what was on the table to be regulated in years past. So this isn't intended to be pessimistic. Usually I begin with everybody should be bullish about hemp, and I still feel that way. What I'm saying, though, is that as much of the desire of individuals to want to get the ball rolling, you know how many times we get called and asked questions of, is anyone going to be able to grow hemp this year? We've got to get seeds in the ground, et cetera. I think we have, what I just laid out there, some, call it like legislative and legal red tape. But all this could be solved, I think, by a clarified executive order. I think MDART taking the lead on some of this, and rules and administrative rules and regulations being written. But I think right now you can't avoid seeing the kind of conflicts of where is the authority going to come from, who's making the rules at this time, and so I don't know if that helps. It probably confuses things, but I don't know that. But if there's anything to take away, it's that there is still some work to be done in terms of the implementation of the law and at what time the licenses, if at all, are going to be issued. There's this news that we can also attribute here to kind of give a timeline. I know that the United States Agricultural Department is having periodic status updates where you can listen in on a conference call, and they will explain, you listen to some of the discussions with stakeholders that are adding their input to the development of the rules and regulations. But the standard response of the department has been that they're working on it, and it's going to be a very, very slow process that beyond just writing the regulations, they have to then have them approved and passed through and ratified. So it's going to be a little bit of time. And with all that being said, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, I even at some point was talking about the possibility if someone did get into a pilot project with the university, or even if they removed that as a requirement that even by like midsummer or even August, the regulations may be written, there may be clarity to transition a pilot project into full-on industrial hemp sales according to licenses that would have been created by the federal government and/or by the state of Michigan. But none of this should be discouraging, because everyone's interest here is obviously to develop and help and contribute to the development of this industry. And I don't know that any project, investment, or what have you should live or die by just the need to plant this year. I don't see it. I think that if you're looking long term and all the opportunities of what's going to take place, I mean, that the vision should be a little bit longer than just the first year. And I understand that need to get ahead of everybody and want to get things in the ground, but this really could be an important year, not just for planting, but building the infrastructure of your entity. A lot of debt out there to build, and even finding the market and branding of whatever product it may be. All those things can take place with the unknowns of how you're going to plant and how you're going to process at this point. There's also, depending on your level of risk that you want to take, there's still the path of importing or buying from other sources and processing things that may not be deemed hemp or fall out of the definition of marijuana. But really, at the end of the day, the question becomes, what are the penalties if you are, in fact, processing hemp? And the reality is it's not criminalized. It's fines and costs and agricultural licensing issues. But for anyone that wants to get one of these licenses, I would be wary that this may be something that, if caught, could be a preclusion later on. I don't know. But the lawyer, I think like that, sometimes the risk that getting caught may preclude your lawful activity later on under the rules when they're promulgated. So there's a lot on the table right now. I think the grander picture here should be long term. I mean, the United States has been the #1 importer of hemp for the last forever, and that is going to dramatically change when licenses are authorized for growing hemp in the United States. And I think it's an interesting dynamic globally in terms of how that affects markets, and neighboring countries are going to be affected by that, and more specifically, what is the impact on, and how's it going to benefit the American farmer? And I think that there's going to be some need to develop these areas of industry and processing. And even if everybody next year, every farmer that that starts growing hemp, unless there's a manufacturing plant that's ready to buy it, or there's a path into another marketplace that's going to buy it globally, it's not, that's not going to happen in year one. But for this group and those surrounding that are interested in embarking down this road, these are the things I think you have to think about. And I mean, it could be something as simple as South America, for example. All the rage at the hemp conference in Panama was that they are going all out. Their government is investing millions of dollars. The international investors are showing up, and they're going to try to dominate the market. I mean, not that I think this is the way it should be, but American hemp farmers may have a direct line into selling their hemp crops into South America for their finite and finishing of products as is their intention. What's interesting is that unlike years past, with the coffee farming, the laws in South America, Panama in particular, are not allowing raw materials to be farmed and sold at low cost and low labor cost. And they want it to be the finished industry that's selling it, so that the profit side stays in the country. So this is just another factor, something to consider. The United States isn't at that level of contemplation trying to protect farmers and processors from, manipulation or low labor costs to benefit or profit from. We're not there yet in the United States, but other countries are, and they may be the ones that the United States is supplying. I don't like saying that, but obviously there's some surrounding markets that are aware of the value here and are going to move in our movement, and we're taking steps to do that. Which is why I make the point of thinking globally when you're thinking about industrial